noisy. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start. It's almost 5:30, so I guess we'll give it one more minute. But it's I'll go ahead and let you know what's going on here in Florida. It's cold. It is 46 degrees right now, which is a little rare for us. So we're really not used to this kind of cold. It's supposed to get down to 34 tonight. So that's why I got my sweatshirt and coat on. There we go. All right, so I think it's about 5:30. Yeah, it's 5:30. So thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about the 5-month platform experiment that I've been doing, and why I chose to do one platform at a time. And just to give you a little bit of background, back in August, I decided to start doing these YouTube channels, or doing my YouTube channel. And it started out kind of rough because I didn't know what I was doing. I got way behind. I was going to Mexico for a whale shark trip, and got to Mexico and I didn't have any Wi-Fi. Hey there, I am from Tampa, Florida, and it's Tampa, Florida. It's called Palm Harbor, but it's near Clearwater Beach. Where are you from? Good to see you. So when I first started out YouTube, I didn't exactly know what I was doing, and hey rock girl, hey rock loving girl, how you doing? Wasn't exactly sure what I was doing. Where are you? I'm in Tampa, Florida. You know, Tunisia. Nice. Wow, we got people from all over the place. So good. Hello to everybody. But when I first started doing YouTube, I wasn't exactly sure what I was doing. I got to Mexico, realized I didn't have any Wi-Fi signal, didn't have any internet, so I couldn't post out, and it was the middle of a 60-day everyday challenge. And it was very frustrating because I was making the content but couldn't edit it because I was using CapCut. And for those of us who use CapCut, it was, imagine having a week of having CapCut down like it was over the weekend. I'm getting ready to go to Hawaii. This live will be from Hawaii next week. So you got to make sure you have internet signal. So what we're going to do now is kind of talk about the 5-month platform experiment and why it's important and how it's a great way to start posting on social media if you haven't started already, or if you're kind of lost and are wanting a little bit of direction. So if you ever felt like you're posting everywhere but growing nowhere, this live is probably going to be for you. Because what finally changed things for me wasn't better content, it wasn't better gear or better ideas. It was focusing on it was changing how I focus. And I'll be looking at the comments as we go on. So when you come in, if you want to say hi, I'd appreciate it. Tell me where you're from. I'm from Tampa, Clearwater, Florida area. It's very cold here right now. It's very unusually cold, we don't usually get in the 30s. We have a chance of hitting 32 tomorrow. So not great weather for us, but I know most of the country is a little chilly. But if but because I was posting everywhere, but not really feeling like I was making any advances at all. What finally changed things for me was not better content, better gear, or better ideas. It was changing how I focused. And what I didn't realize was that each platform has a different style and a different thing that you need to focus on to get better at it. So whether you're watching this live or catching on replay, I appreciate you guys being here. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comments below, and I'll stop and ask and answer them whenever I see them. Um, Tonight, I want to walk you through something that has completely changed how I think about social media, content creation, and honestly, my energy as a creator. Because when you're creating and it's not going well, it can be very frustrating. This isn't really a theory, it's something that I'm actively doing. I'm Chris Kaiser from Capture by CK. I'm a real estate media. I have a real estate media company. I do wildlife and nature photography, and I also do video creation. So that's who I am. Um, Good morning to you. Hello to you, Benjamin. How are you today? Um, this is something that I'm actively doing, and tonight, what I wanted to do was explain why I chose the approach doing of focusing on one platform at a time. Because for a long time, I did what most new creators, or even what seasoned creators often do, and that's I post on YouTube, I post on TikTok, I post on Instagram, I post on Facebook, and I posted on LinkedIn. And every platform uses different rules, has different formats, and different expectations. And most importantly, the algorithm for each platform is different. And I told myself that it was just the cost of playing the game now was, having to put that one piece of content on each platform and not really making it dedicated to that platform. But actually, what was happening was, while I thought I was advancing my creativity and what I was doing, I was constantly behind, and I was always guessing. Plus, the algorithm never really knew who I was or who I was talking to, so that was a problem. If a video didn't perform, I didn't know if it was the hook, the platform, the timing, or the topic. And without knowing any of that, what you're producing is almost just like noise. And that's the part that slowly wears you down as a creator. You're working hard, but you don't feel smarter at the end of the week. You're not getting a lot of traction. And part of the reason is because the algorithm doesn't know who to show your content to. So the frustrating part was it wasn't laziness, and it wasn't inconsistency, because I've posted over 180 videos now. I'm posting a video a day for the next 365 days. And so I was always showing up, but I was learning very slowly because I didn't direct anything to any one platform. Every format split my focus. Well, hey, Hot Sunday. Marketing, yes, marketing costs a lot of money, and that's why this is so important, because you probably really shouldn't be investing any marketing money until you understand what's going to work, and more importantly, what's not going to work on each platform, because each platform does things a little differently. So by learning each platform as you go, and holding off on investing those marketing dollars until the algorithm has a better chance to learn who you are. Because right now, if you're posting all five platforms and not really directing it to any one platform, when you change something and you kind of move before the loop is finished. So you don't know if it's working, if it's not working. It might be working on one platform and not working on another. So instead of improving quickly on one thing, you think you're gonna improve slowly on everything, but actually you're just more confused. And when I realized that was important, then I knew that I actually needed to just pick one platform. And by picking one platform, you get more clarity. And clarity doesn't come from doing more, it comes from staying in one place long enough to see patterns and allowing the algorithm the chance to kind of learn you and learn who to bring your material to. It takes each algorithm a good 15 to 30 days to even understand, or 15 to 30 videos or posts before it even begins to understand who to show your content to. So while posting everywhere feels productive and it looks productive, it's actually the slowest way to learn. Each platform teaches you a different skill. So YouTube teaches you clarity and structure, and then TikTok teaches you speed and hooks. LinkedIn teaches you conversation and trust. But if you rotate platforms every day, you never fully learn any of that. And you constantly are context switching. So you need to pick one. And the same is true for Instagram. In February, I'm going to start posting on Instagram, and it's a lot like TikTok in that your Instagram videos need to be between 7 and 15 seconds to get the most views on your reels. So I never realized that. I thought, you had 30 to 60 seconds, but that's not the case. And I would not have known that. I guess I would have eventually learned it, but I would not have known that had I not been getting ready to focus on Instagram as a platform. So I hit a point where I realized that posting everywhere and not focusing on any one platform really wasn't sustainable. Not mentally and definitely not strategically. So that's when I stopped asking how to grow faster and started asking how to learn faster. And that's when I came up with this 30-day challenge. So the rule I set for myself was simple. Oh boy, hot Sunday. No strategy works too if you're consistently outputting good content, inviting people into your ambience based off what you like and not what others think. No shame and courage does the trick. So, and yes, that can, doing what people want instead of what you believe can give you some immediate momentum, but it's not going to be sustainable. So if you stick to what you believe in the long run, you're going to have a platform and a channel that's based on your beliefs, and eventually all that will come full circle back. So and that is just another reason why this one platform per month strategy is a great idea, because you do one platform, you post on it every day or as often as you possibly can for the whole month, and you don't switch around. That doesn't mean you can't post what you're creating for that one platform on other platforms. You absolutely can, but you make that post for a whole month. Make those posts focus directly on those platforms. Ask ChatGPT, research on YouTube how to make your post focused on that one platform. Say it's Instagram, like what I'm doing for the month of February, or say it's LinkedIn, which is what I did for the month of January. In LinkedIn, conversations were important. Views didn't really matter. It was more about continuing the conversation. So for LinkedIn, you had to go back and you had to answer questions and try and get the community to interact with you to make even a semblance of growth. Now, I focused on YouTube first, and I only thought about YouTube for the month of October. So I thought about titles, thumbnails, retentions, and structure. And then in November, I went to TikTok, and TikTok, it was focused on speed and hooks and simplicity and really bringing things much tighter. And when I went to LinkedIn in January, it was replies and conversations and trust, like I was telling you before. I'm not trying to win on every platform at once, but I'm not I didn't fully understand each platform, and not many creators do. They have certain platforms that they excel in because each one takes a unique characteristic. You have to focus your content a certain way for each one. That doesn't mean you can't reuse your content. You absolutely can, but you need to reuse it correctly. And just that one shift has changed how I approach content, and it removed pressure and play and kind of replaced it with an intention. So now what I'm doing is, I know in February I'm going to focus on how my content is doing on Instagram. Now that doesn't mean I'm ignoring YouTube. I'm still going to be doing my YouTube lives every week. I'm still watching to see if I'm getting YouTube growth, and thankfully I am. But because when you post daily on one platform, patterns start to show up faster because you realize that you're creating content directly for that algorithm, so you know what is working and what's not working, and you can stop guessing and really start testing things. You know what to adjust next time, and you know what deserves another attempt. So you don't take everything so personally, which is part of the battle too, because when things don't go well, it's very frustrating. And a lot of people don't understand that this is a lot of hard work. We have to research our content, we have to put it out there in a entertaining and educational format, and then you gotta wait while you try and get recognized by the algorithm. And curiosity is a much better fuel than frustration. And so when you start focusing on just one platform, that gets to be a little bit easier because you at least you know what rules you're playing by. And that's important. And when the experiment stopped feeling risky and started feeling obvious, things really started to change. So another thing that changed was how clear my thinking became. So when you're focused on one platform, your brain it isn't juggling like 10 sets of rules. I'm not thinking about how it needs to be 15 seconds or 60 seconds or 8 minutes. You're not asking whether something will work everywhere. You're just worried about whether it's going to work in the platform you're working on. Um, that constraint forces better decisions and better framing and better explanations. So it allows you to really focus on what you're trying to do. Instead of scattered effort, you get more directional momentum. And momentum makes it easier to keep going, even when results are not the best. That's when I realized focus isn't limiting, it's freeing, because at least I had a plan. And the middle model that made this stick for me was that platforms aren't destinations, they're skills. And I didn't realize that until I started this experiment. I knew you had to change the way you posted on certain platforms, but if you kind of think of it like this, because I'm a photographer, so you wouldn't try to learn photography, video design, and editing all at once and expect to improve quickly. But that's exactly what creators do when they try and switch platforms and try and post on every single one. So this experiment turns platforms into skills you study, not identities you kind of attach yourself to. You're not marrying YouTube, you're learning it. And once you understand that, you get to decide how much space it deserves in your life and your workflow. Another benefit people don't talk about is about signal quality. When you focus on one platform, feedback becomes clean. It's something that works you know where it worked. When it works, you know where it worked. And when it fails, you know where it failed. So you can think to yourself, well, that didn't work on LinkedIn, and I don't need to try that type of video anymore. I need to use a different type of content. That clarity accelerates improvement and reduces emotional noise. Instead of asking why nothing is growing anywhere, you begin to ask what platform rewards what. It turns frustration into data and confusion into direction. So over time, you start to see patterns instead of anomalies, and that's how the real learning happens. This approach isn't about growth hacks. It's not a get done quickly thing. It's about compression. When you're compressing years of scattered learning into months of focused experience. And after 5 months, you don't just have content, you have intuition. So you understand what might work on each platform. Now, especially if you're not doing YouTube, if you're doing YouTube Shorts, if you're doing LinkedIn, if you're doing TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you need to post at least 3 times a week for this to even have a semblance of success. Because you need to understand how the platforms behave, and you need to recognize audience signals. And once you start doing that, you'll recognize those signals faster. You know what skills transfers and which ones don't, because they don't all transfer, but a lot of them do. And that's the other exciting thing, is that many of the skills that you're learning will transfer to other platforms. And it's the reason I'm comfortable continuing this experiment and talking through it live. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, because the value just isn't in the results, it's in the learning. And that really can't be understated. Now, one thing that I want to be clear about is that this experience isn't about abandoning other platforms forever. It's about changing the order in which you learn them. So you think about which one is going to help you the most. Most creators try to balance everything at once. And that sounds great, but it's actually inefficient. It sounds like you're doing so much, but what you're doing, you're spreading attention before you've learned the intuition. You don't know exactly how to post on each platform yet. So until you do, this approach kind of helps you learn the rest of the information that you don't have yet. Instead of asking where should I post today, you ask what am I trying to learn this month. So it's a whole mindset shift. The single question changes how you show up. You're no longer chasing validation. You're running a study. And when you think of it like that, when you don't have the best results, it's a little bit easier to accept. Because when you think like a researcher instead of a performer, pressure drops and progress kind of speeds up. This is also why, daily posting matters so much inside the experiment. I really think that if you can handle daily posting, it's the best way to go. Because posting daily isn't about volume. It's about shortening feedback loops. So if you think of it like that, every post doesn't have to be a cinematical, reviewable piece of content. You don't need to inflate your ego. You post daily. When you do, the results normalize. Losses don't crush your motivation. They're just data points. And so when you think of it like that, that consistency makes patterns visible faster. And so you see what topics pull people in. So you understand what topic might get more attention than others. You see where the attention drops. It allows you to understand why I don't want to talk about that again, because it just did not go over like I thought it would. And you see what earns responses versus silence. Because you're staying on one platform, those signals are pretty clean. And most importantly, the algorithm of that platform is learning you and pushing your content to people that might be interested in what you have to say. That's how you stop guessing and start adjusting with confidence. But let me talk briefly about YouTube, because that was my first platform I focused on. And YouTube forced me to slow down and to be clean and to be more clear. It exposed where my expectations were fuzzy. I it punished vague titles and punished weak openings. I started out just kind of vlogging, and it didn't go too great for me. And at first, just being on YouTube was uncomfortable, but over time, it sharpened how I communicate. YouTube doesn't reward effort. The rewards are clarity and the way I speak and the way I put an idea together. If a viewer doesn't know what the video is about quickly, they leave, just like here. Yeah, some people stayed, some people will go back and watch this later, but the lesson alone changed how I think about content everywhere else. Even when I'm not on YouTube, I now ask, is this clear in the first few seconds? Because on YouTube, you get more time than any other platform. On TikTok and Instagram, you get like 2 to 3 seconds to make sure your idea is coming across, which is what I learned on TikTok. And TikTok's taught me something completely different. TikTok didn't care how thoughtful I was, it cared how fast I got to the point, which was a little difficult for me. Hooks mattered more than polish, and momentum mattered more than perfection. Now, those two things that sound great, but it's harder to put in application than it sounds. TikTok exposed how I often over explain things, which I still guilty of to this day, and how I often delayed the point because I like to make sure, I like to paint a story. I was always told you need to paint a story on YouTube. That's not necessarily true. You need to get to the point and you need to have chapters. And even though TikTok feels chaotic, the learning was precise. It taught me that clarity without speed still loses people. So you can have the best message, but if you can't get to it quickly, it's not going to work. That lesson transferred immediately to YouTube and LinkedIn. I started tightening openings everywhere, not just on TikTok. That's the power of learning one platform at a time. Right now, I'm focused on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is teaching me patience and conversation. It's something that's totally different. LinkedIn doesn't reward spikes the same way, it rewards continuity. So replies matter more than likes. So you got to go back and you have to answer all of your comments and answer any questions, which I would do anyway. But not only that, but once you answer a question, you ask another question to try and keep that viewer engaged. So follow-ups matter more than reach. And then once you master that, then LinkedIn rewards you by pushing your content more. And that's been a valuable counterbalance to faster platforms, because in the end, all the platforms are adopting this way of thinking that it needs to be a community involvement. And the more involvement you get in your community, the more you're going to get your content push. It reminded me that not all progress is loud. Some platforms teach you to hold attention, others teach you to build relationships, and LinkedIn was definitely one that teaches you to build relationships. Both matter, and you don't really learn that unless you stay long enough to see it. And that's again why doing this one platform a month for 5 months is so important. This is still the experiment. This is where the experiment really clicked for me, because each platform wasn't competing with the others. They were teaching different parts of the same skill set, which was important. YouTube sharpened structure, TikTok sharpened speed, and LinkedIn sharpened conversation. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, I felt kind of assembled. Each month added a layer instead of adding chaos. And because I wasn't switching daily, those lessons stuck. I wasn't relearning the same mistake over and over, and I could focus on that platform and focus my content on that platform and know what I actually was trying to do. I was building on what I already understood. I could see what worked. So that was one of the great benefits of the compounding effect, is what most creators miss when they bounce between platforms. So when you stick with one platform, you see what works and you can duplicate it. Another benefit I didn't expect was how much this reduced burnout. Not that I ever had a lot of burnout, but when you're not debating formats every day, you're not questioning whether you should be somewhere else because you know that's where you're going to be for the next month. You're committed to a defined window. That boundary is freeing. It turns content into practice instead of a performance. So when you show up to learn, not to prove something, and learning is sustainable in a way chasing outcomes isn't. Hold on one second. I gotta say hi to my grandson. Hey there, how are ya? I'll be in about 15 minutes, okay? I got work. Pop-ups at work. That's the big reason I've been able to keep this experiment going consistently. I I also want to I also want to say this clearly. This experiment doesn't require talent or charisma or even perfect ideas. It requires honesty and repetition. You don't need viral concepts. You need clear ones. So that's kind of freeing in itself. You don't need to be entertaining. You don't need to be understandable. Focusing on one platform strips away all those excuses because if something isn't working, you can't blame the platform mix. You just have to look at the message. And that accountability accelerates growth faster than motivation ever will. It forces improvement, and improvement is the real goal, not just vanity metrics. So by the end of 5 months, the real win isn't audience size, it's confidence because you now understand each and every platform. You stop chasing needing permissions. You stop chasing advice endlessly because you've lived it. You've seen enough patterns to trust your own judgment. So you know what you might need to try. You know what might work. And that's when content creation gets easier. You're no longer reacting to every fluctuation because you know that, well, maybe just that one tweak didn't do right, but I can fix this. Or you're operating from experience, and that experience transfers everywhere you go next. So whatever you learn on one platform for sure transfers to the other. That's why I'm comfortable saying this approach isn't a shortcut, it's more of a foundation. I wish I would have started this way. So if you're watching this and feeling scattered, overwhelmed, or unsure about what's actually helping, this experiment might be worth considering. Not forever, just as a reset. One platform, 1 month, daily reps, and focused learning. You don't have to copy my platforms or my order, just the structure and the value. You can use whatever platforms you want. If you think you only need 3 platforms, then make it a 3 month challenge. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to decide at the end of the 5 months, do I go back and start five all over again because I've learned a little from each one? Or do I decide which one's helping me with my media business and my photography business and my photography skills the most and focus on that one? Right now, I think having the knowledge of just a basic understanding of each platform, it's warranted for me to go ahead and start the 5 month platform all over again. That's how much I like this concept. And over the next few weeks, I'll keep sharing what platforms teaches me as I move through this. Because the real benefit isn't mastery of one app, it's understanding how attention across all of them is established and how to really make the algorithm understand you and what you're doing. So one thing I want to emphasize is that the experiment isn't about picking a winner platform right away. It's about removing noise long enough to understand the behavior. So you're going to have platforms you do not like. For me, it's TikTok. And when you slow down and stay in one place, you start noticing things that you normally miss. You notice which ideas consistently earn attention, and you notice where people drop off. And most importantly, you notice what sparks replies versus silence. And when you do this experiment, like I said, I'm not a big fan of TikTok, but I know it's going to be very important for my photography business and for everything else I'm trying to create. So it's going to be very important that I learn it. So having to do the experiment one more time on each platform is a great way to force me to really get to know TikTok, because having it be a platform that's not my favorite, it's not one that I want to spend a whole lot of time on, even though I know I should. These observations don't happen as easily when you're posting on all platforms at the same time and your spread's so thin. They require repetition in the same environment. That's why this works even if your numbers aren't huge yet. And that's what's so magical about it is learning doesn't require scale. It requires consistency. And the earlier you build that habit of focused learning, the more it compounds later. So even with a small following or a small presence on each platform, you still need one to understand and learn the platform, and two, you get feedback that you wouldn't normally get had you not focused on that one platform the way it was. So another unexpected benefit is that it simplifies decision making. You're not debating where something should go. You already know. It reduces friction. You know, next month I know I'm posting for Instagram, but I also know that I'm going to post one video a day to YouTube. So it's kind of like doing two things at once. You spend less time planning and more time executing. And execution is where learning lives. And that's important because if you can't execute it correctly, you're never going to get the information that you need. You're not reinventing the process every day. You're refining it. You're learning from what you got. And refinement is more productive than constant reinvention. Because if you're always trying to reinvent things, you never know what's going to work or why. This also changes how you view the results because you commit to a month, you stop overreacting to individual posts because you know you got another 30 to go. A good video doesn't mean you've cracked the code, they're just samples. It's a good way to start. You can mimic how that good video went. You can try and duplicate that, but it's not going to guarantee a winner every time. The long term view stabilizes your mindset. You're not chasing dopamine. You're building an understanding, and that shift alone protects you from burnout because it keeps you grounded when the results are uneven. So when they're overly good or overly bad, at least they're constant, and you know you're always learning. The month becomes the unit of measurement, not the single post. And that's a healthier way to evaluate your progress, that's for sure. I think this is especially important right now because platforms change so fast. The algorithm changes weekly sometimes. So formats change, algorithms shift, advice expires. So I had that problem in the very beginning. I was taking advice from videos that were 2 and 3 years old that they wasn't really applicable now. So make sure you're keeping up with the most current advice. And the best way to do that is if you do this challenge where you do just one specific platform each month. The experiment trains that muscle. You're not memorizing tactics, you're observing patterns. And when those patterns last longer than anything else, then you know you've learned something. And you can also apply it as you go. So you don't have to rely on outdated advice because you're getting real-time advice as you go. Experience beats advice every time. And that's important. By the end of the experiment, you're not expecting perfection, you're expecting clarity. And that's what this gives you. You want to know which platform energizes you. You want to know which ones drain you and which ones align with the way you like to communicate. You might be great with one platform, but it might not be anything that you enjoy. And if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to be able to do it every day. You only get it by showing up consistently, though. And this process helps you choose platforms intentionally instead of reactively. Instead of asking where you should be, you ask where you want to invest your time. And that's a much better place to operate from. So if you're watching this on replay, I want you to know this isn't something you have to announce publicly when you start. You don't need a big declaration. You just need to decide. Pick a platform, set a month, post daily, and pay attention. That's it. No rebrand, no overhaul. Just focused reps. Focus on that one platform. And if you miss a day, you don't quit. You continue. But consistency over perfection is what makes this work. So try and show up every day. Try not to miss a day because each time you post, it's a different input that will give you more and more knowledge of what might work, what will work, what won't work. Over the next few weeks, I'll be going deeper into what each platform has taught me. I'll talk more about YouTube and clarity, more about TikTok and speed, and more about LinkedIn and conversations. And then each live will build on this type of foundation. So next week when I'm in Hawaii, we'll probably talk about YouTube and how I learned that. And if this approach resonates with you, you'll probably enjoy the rest of the series, because if you're still here live or on reply, I appreciate you spending the time. My goal with these lives isn't to give you a perfect formula. It's to share a process that helps me think more clearly and create more sustainably. If you're feeling overwhelmed, scattered, or stuck, that clarity alone can be a huge relief. So you might want to give it a try. You don't need to do anything. You just need to do one thing well, long enough to learn from it. And that's what makes this process so encouraging. If you want to continue the conversation, leave a comment and tell me which platform you'd focus on first. If you were to try this, that helps me shape future lives and gives the video more context for replay of viewers. So if you found this useful, consider subscribing. The entire experiment is public, and it's all about what Kapturing Chris is about. It's my journey from starting from zero. I'm up to 124 when we started this live today. I've been doing it since August, and I'm sharing it as it unfolds, including what works and what doesn't work. So to kind of wrap this up, the 5-month platform experiment isn't about growth hacks. It's not about shortcuts. It's about learning faster and focusing harder. One platform, 1 month, and daily reps. If you take anything from this, let it be this. Clarity comes from staying put long enough to see patterns. And that's important, because once you see patterns, you can react and decide what to do next. Thanks for being here, whether live or on replay. I'll see you on the next live, where I'll break down YouTube specifically taught me and the clarity and structure that I now use to have it continue. Thanks so much. You guys have a great night. We'll talk to you very soon. Chris Kaiser, Captured by CK, real estate, nature, and wildlife photography in Tampa Bay. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great one. Bye-bye.